If a gigantic spaceship hurtles towards Earth loaded with unknown contents and that ship crashes into a city causing thousands, if not tens of thousands of casualties, who do you send to save the day? If you said the Marines, an army of synthetics, or men in mech armor, you'd be wrong. The correct answer was actually untrained 11-year-old children who've spent their entire life extremely sick and were only but very recently transferred into near priceless cybernetic bodies, given absolutely no training whatsoever and sent into a scenario where they could very likely die, flushing this entire extremely expensive project right down the toilet. I'm not kidding, that's the plot of this show.
It's bad. Bad how?
Bad in a way that I imagine they must have spent the budget of a Marvel movie in payoffs and bribes to somehow curate that 91% on Rotten Tomatoes it currently has. What did you people watch? Anyway, I'm spoiling the hell out of this turd, so you've been warned, but honestly, I'm doing you a favor. Let's get started.
The nightmare begins.
The show starts off by exploiting your nostalgia for the original Alien, recreating the cryosleep room replete with the pods in a circle, all opening at the same time. It further digs its surgical nostalgia extraction tool into the back of your skull by recreating the computer room from Alien 1 where the synthetic talks to Mother.
Oh, I remember.
We're then introduced to our extremely diverse crew looking like some HR lady's dream rainbow of diversity, where they spend the next, I'm not kidding, 8 minutes explaining that there are specimens on board and that corporations rule the world and which corporations rule which country. Ooh, commentary. We get zero, and I mean zero, plot advancement during this entire sequence. It's all set up to establish those two facts. 8 minutes of the pilot. Oh, and they all die. Yeah, the next time we see them, they're either all dead or in the process of getting mauled by aliens. So you spent the first 8 minutes of your pilot establishing characters we're never gonna see again and have no influence on the story whatsoever. You don't think you could have cut that? You don't think we could have cut that whole sequence and just cut to the fucking ship crashing? You had to waste our time with that? Really? Why? And they clearly hired the best and brightest for this, because there's a sequence where this girl, much later on in this stupid show, is being chased by an alien, and she is banging on this door with like the energy of like checking to see if a coffee shop is open. I swear to God, I was like, you're about to get mauled by an 8-foot alien. Could you please show like some level of distress? I mean, is she smiling right here? I'm sorry, I exaggerated there a bit. One guy does survive, the synthetic who, I don't know, is good, is bad, it's hard to say at this point. We know so little about the world they're creating, and they spend so much time getting there. Maybe you're saying to yourself, that's just the first 8 minutes, or maybe just trying to establish tone and sort of get some stakes early on in the story. You'd be wrong, because they spend the next 20 minutes, and this is the pilot, mind you, okay? The pilot is supposed to establish the characters, the stakes, the story. Basically, it's like an advertisement for what you're gonna see for the rest of the run of this show. They spend the next 20 minutes establishing this girl, Wendy, is like sick or something, and she's gonna be the first person in one of these cyborg models, and she's special. They take 20 minutes to do this. I'm not exaggerating. Go look at the time codes. But honestly, that's it. No plot yet. 30 minutes into the show, no plot.
Ugats.
Seriously, what they've established so far could have been accomplished in a 3-minute montage where you just see the girl saying she's special, getting into the body. We don't need the backstory. We don't need the emotional hang-up. We know she's gonna be a cyborg. Just get to it already, please. And you didn't even need that whole sequence in the ship. You could have just cut to the ship crashing and then they piece it together later. We didn't need to see it. I was getting my hair cut today, and my barber told me that he started watching the first 20 minutes and turned it off. Yeah, I don't blame him. It's boring. It's unbelievably boring. Later, and I mean later, not during this sequence, later in the show, we learn that Wendy has a brother, and he's a medic with like this special forces like search and rescue team, and Wendy seems to be obsessed with him. It's like the last family member she has alive, and it's like a big motivation. I will note, this still isn't plot or story. This is backstory. This is establishment. We have not been introduced to one bit of story yet. So since something does eventually have to happen in this show, we're finally introduced to the story where the spaceship with all the diverse crew that we met earlier, who are all dead now, well, this ship comes crashing to Earth, and crashing is a pretty select word when you watch what happens with this spaceship. It hits with the impact of like a glider. If a commercial airliner crashed in the middle of a city, it would be one of the most devastating aviation disasters ever. A spaceship, it's like, meh, okay. Like, I can't understand any scenario where this thing would not mushroom cloud that entire city, but whatever. At least something's happening. But like, why is there no advance warning? Like, I feel like nowadays, if a space shuttle just started tumbling to Earth, if one of Elon's rockets just lost course and started falling to the planet, we would know. How come no one knows? How come no one's anticipating this? How come there's no countermeasures? How come there's no way to stop this? Like, we shot down a commercial airliner full of people on 9/11, and you're just gonna let what I assume is a nuclear reactor-driven spaceship crash into the middle of the city? You have no way to prevent this? I'm just grateful something happened, so let's just move on. So the ship gently glides to a halt at the base of this building, and it does cause some devastation. Not nearly what I think it should, but you know, it's pandemonium. Everyone's running around. Wendy's brother is on one of the search and rescue teams that goes in to help people at the site of the crash. And let me tell you, they are armed to the teeth. That's standard protocol, right? I remember on 9/11, all those brave firefighters storming the burning building with assault rifles and mortar teams on standby. That's how you rescue people, with bullets. What is this show? And nearest I can tell, he's the only medic on the team. The rest of them are like commandos with their rifles out. Like, who are you fighting? It's a crashed spaceship. We know there's an alien on board, but they don't. Also, we don't exactly know who they work for or what their goals are. They're not strictly laid out, but let me tell you, they are shit at rescuing people. As they're going into the building, they like duck debris that's falling onto a person and they don't help them. And there's another person who's like on fire and they just keep going. It's like, you're search and rescue. Go rescue. What are you doing? I don't know, maybe they're like a private search and rescue team and their only goal is to go save the survivors of the spaceship or something. And you could have actually had a pretty interesting character moment where the hero boy is like trying to rescue someone else, but it's like, no, we've got our orders, we've got our objective. Would have been a nice character moment, but this show doesn't really have any of that. They enter the building the ship crashed into, and wouldn't you know it, when they get to a certain floor, there's just a nice convenient opening in the ship with a beam just extended for them to jump onto the ship. Well, that worked out pretty good. What the team doesn't know is there's actually an alien loose on this ship. Whoa. Wish there was an alien in the room with me while I was watching this crap. Gouge out my eyes so I didn't have to suffer through it any longer. Holy hell, this show stinks. So Wendy, I'll remind you, little girl in a cyborg body, sees that her brother's in danger and then volunteers the entire team to go help. And the trillionaire tech entrepreneur who's invested who knows how many billions into this program agrees. Why? There's no time jump. There's no training montage. There's no implication that they've gotten some sort of special abilities. They're just a bunch of kids in robot bodies. Imagine if we had a situation like that today, right? And there's some horrible wreck and we have like mechs. It would be the equivalent of just loading up 11-year-olds into that to go save the day. How is that helpful at all? Even if their safety is guaranteed, it does not help the situation in the slightest. What's even stupider is this show establishes that there are synthetics, you know, like androids walking around who have the same strength and ability, even more abilities than these cyborgs, who are just, they exist in this world. So instead of sending an army of them to go save the day, they send the kids. They send children. The show passes it off because it's like, oh, they're strong. They're in like cyborg bodies. It's like, okay, a high school football team is full of very strong people, but I don't want to send them into a fire. You need to be trained for stuff like that. You need to be prepared for seeing ungodly horrors. I was even giving the show the slightest bit of credit. I assumed Wendy was like 14. No, they spell it out in the next episode. She's 11. 11! And what's worse, they explicitly spell out that these kids can die from like explosions or getting crushed.
We can still be crushed or like explode though. We'll be set on fire.
Things that could very likely happen at the scene of a spaceship crash, and they send them in there. I mean, this was written. This cost millions of dollars to make. So back inside the spaceship, the synthetic who like escaped the monster or whatever, and it's hard to tell whether he's good. He like ties up two of the search and rescue guys and puts like these blood-sucking monster things on them, and they die. And then there's just big blood monster things. You don't find out what happens with that by the end of the second episode. Quite frankly, I don't care. But I'm just catching you up on what's going on. And like the worst part, the biggest sin that this show has is like by the end of the first episode, the kids aren't even on site to save the day. Like that could have very easily happened in the first 15 minutes of this show if they had any concern for efficiency of writing, which they do not. The next thing I want to say it's like the dumbest thing, but there's just so many dumb things in this show. But this thing that happened, I had to pause and rewind to make sure that I just witnessed what I thought I just witnessed. So once Wendy gets the okay, and for some reason all the other kids are like, they don't even get a say in whether they're going into this disaster. Like they just got a new lease on life, and now they're immediately going into one of the most dangerous, life-threatening situations, and none of them voices so much as an objection, let alone staying behind. But whatever, they're all gonna go. So Wendy, once again, for some reason, feels she needs a weapon, just like all the commandos with the assault rifles. It's like, you don't know there's an alien there. Why do you need a weapon? But the weapon that Wendy chooses, I'm not making this up. She goes into, I guess, one of the offices or something and takes that big blade that's on those like paper trimmers that we had in high school, rips it off, and then just like sticks it to her back like she's magnetic or something, and then off she goes. What? What? Why? Why do they even have those in the future? I know that you and we just live in a mountain of paperwork. It's a constant problem. I mean, I just have so much paper that I have to deal with all the time. Paper, paper, paper. I get that. For me and you, I understand that. But surely in the future, they'll sort out this paper apocalypse that we all currently in 2025 live in. I'm sure in the next 150 years, they'll really get to work and solve this whole paper crisis we all have to deal with every day. There's other things you could say, like these corporations have like private military, so like why wouldn't they give her like a better gun? Or if she wanted a sword, like an actual sword, not the blade on a fucking paper cutter, which I imagine would break the first time you used it as some kind of a weapon, because that's not what it was built for. But that aside, this was actually done really well in the movie The Faculty, which takes place at a high school that aliens have taken over, and they don't have options for weapons. So he rips it off and uses it as a sword. Like in that scenario, that makes perfect sense. It's actually pretty cool. Faculty's kind of sick. You should check it out. But this doesn't make any sense on so many levels. Why does that exist in the future? It wouldn't. Why is she allowed a weapon? And why does it stick to her? Why does she feel she needs a weapon? Why do they let her have a weapon? It breaks your brain, the lack of logic in this pile of shit. It is unbelievably bad. Let me tell you one thing they did sort out in the future. Impact resistance. Yes, in the future that will not be a problem. Gravity will have been mastered. Because on the interior of the ship, in the labs, and in every room, for some reason, there are things on tables. There are standing carts. There is literally a dissection of one of the aliens with the instruments very delicately laid out as if they just finished the dissection moments before it was shown. Now, in current 2025 year, when something is moving really fast and then comes to a sudden halt, the momentum of the things inside doesn't stop. They fly forward. It's seriously one of the most basic concepts of physics. You could explain it to a toddler and they would grasp it, but not the writers of this show. Also, the search and rescue team at one point, they get to the pod room where all the cryo tubes are, and they're investigating them one by one, and they're like, oh, what happened here? Oh, it looks like a monster burst out of this chest of this person, which was stupid, by the way, because the girl looks at it and the first thing she thinks is, what could do that? It's like, I don't know, a giant beam of metal, much like the girl right next to her, clearly got impaled by a moving object because a spaceship just crashed. Why is your first conclusion this is abnormal? She has a hole in her chest. She just went from a spaceship crash. I would say that's a likely outcome for anyone on that spaceship. Why are you perplexed by this? Anyway, they go through all the pods in this room except the one that has a fucking alien in it. They missed that one. It's like you guys didn't even do a thorough search of all the pods, and it wasn't hidden. It wasn't like under a blanket. There was a smash pod and the alien's right there, and they missed it.
Why do you do this? You're so stupid! Stupid, stupid, stupid!
Holy shit. You could have hid that in the room. It could have been under a counter or like tucked away and then we see it, but they don't. It's right there. It's right in the room that they were exploring, that they were going pod to pod to see if there were survivors. They missed it. I'm like actually agitated at this. Most of the things that I've explained in this video thus far all happened in the first episode, and it does not get better in the second episode. I don't really want to go over the entire plot of the second episode, mostly because there really isn't one, but there are just some things that happened that drove me crazy. So Wendy's brother has two separate opportunities to shoot the alien and instead just runs. And both times he points his gun at the target. He doesn't know what it is the first time, fine. And so maybe that startled him. But the second time, he lines up the assault rifle, right? The pulse rifle, the famous pulse rifle from Aliens where they're exploiting your nostalgia. He lines it up and points at the alien. And then when the alien jumps, he just runs away. It's like, why do you keep taking your gun out if you're not gonna shoot the thing with it? The technology motif is all over the place because they keep trying to exploit your nostalgia by referencing the original Alien. So there's like tube TVs like they had in Alien, which is like, yeah, in 1979 that made sense, but not now when we already have flat screens and iPhones and smart watches. We know that that's not gonna be the future. And they are kind of aware of this because it's like they have these tube TVs, dunk, 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 but they also have like iPads. And you're like, which technological motif are you going with? Is it like cassette punk or is it the time we live in now plus 150 years? Like, which one? It's like, if they have the ability for flat screens, why do they still have tube TVs? We got rid of them in like 7 years. They went from everyone having them to no one having them. They haven't sorted this out in the next 200. At one point, an alien is like hiding to like pounce on its victims and hides in plain sight, like in a statue and becomes like part of the statue. Why does it know how to do that? Why does it understand that it would be camouflaged because it's part of some abstract art? How could it understand that? In the original movies, they would hide like in the rafters and they would jump down at you. It's like, that makes sense. That's like out of sight. But why would it know to disguise itself as abstract art? Why? The blood splatter is all over the place in this show. There's a scene where this party's going on and they're like 18th century, like French or English people, and they're like, oh, we're having a party, blah, 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 blah. And the alien gets there and kills everybody. And there's like no splatter. Like the bodies are all mangled, but there's nothing like all over the walls like you'd imagine it would be. It's just pools of blood. And I was like, that's stupid. But then literally like 10 minutes later, the alien slaughters like the rest of this like security force. And it looks like the inside of a slaughterhouse. It's just blood all over the walls. And I'm like, well, what did it conserve the blood last time? Like, why was it just like, stealth killing everybody? What the hell? Why is that? It's like literally 10 minutes apart in the show. It's like, don't you see how inconsistent that is? Couldn't you have like added CG blood if you didn't dress it properly the first time? But by far the dumbest thing that happens once like this story actually gets under its feet, which it never really does, but in the context of this show, I guess that's what's happening. So the brother survives like all these alien attacks and gets like incapacitated by the synthetic who's like working for the bad guys or whatever. We don't really know. Who fucking cares? But he survives all this, and he's the only one living besides the synthetic who's seen the alien. And when Wendy and her friend show up, he doesn't tell them. He stands around having a casual conversation and acts like a medic, not someone who should be traumatized by seeing an 8-foot alien monster from the depths of hell ripping people to pieces. Wendy barely reacts when she sees all the bodies in parts, and she doesn't ask what happened. It's not part of the ship. It's clearly not part of the impact because this part of the apartment building is fine. She's not even curious why there's mangled piles of bodies everywhere. Doesn't even ask a question. And then the brother doesn't warn them. Then she clearly has comms, doesn't tell her to tell everybody that there's a monster loose. It's gonna rip the city to pieces. Nothing. They just carry on. Oh, we're gonna go link back up. I truly went into this show like trying to be like objective, you know, to try to be open-minded about what this show could be. And the level of incompetence that this show was composed with blows my mind. Like, I can't understand that there are powerful, extremely wealthy executives who read these scripts and were like, bingo, you nailed it, Noah. Like, I don't know how the review industry works as far as like the critics on Rotten Tomatoes and stuff like that, but if these people honestly think that this show is good and there's no compensation on the other end, they should never be listened to about what the weather is outside, let alone any critical insight onto any piece of media ever again. This is irredeemable. There is nothing about this show that you can be like, oh, that's actually kind of good. That's interesting. I'm curious to see where this is. I will never watch another second of this show. There is nothing in it. Do not have any hope. If you're like still optimistic, this is how they launch it. This is the big, let's reel them in. Let's hook them with this. This is how they started it. It can't get better. Yeah, that's it. Alien Earth is an irredeemable pile of crap. Don't watch it. Like, it stinks. We deserve better. And first of all, they should just stop with the whole Alien franchise. They should just abandon it. Like, please stop beating this thing into the ground.
Stop! He's already dead.
But like, we as the audience, as the paying public who pays for this, we deserve better. We like, do not give them your money. Watch Mobland. Watch Dark. Those are good shows. Watch The Expanse. Ultimately, if you haven't seen that, you're in for a fucking treat. Watch the first 3 seasons of The Expanse, some of the best TV ever made. But don't watch this crap. Don't watch this crap. It's an insult. It's an insult to cinema. It's an insult to movies. It's an insult to writing. It's most importantly, it's an insult to you. They don't care. And if they do care, they're so incompetent that this is what they can do. Vote with your money and just tell this show to kick rocks. All right.